Hello, this is Dakota78, and this is part 2 of my Deltarune Chapter 2 rating. And I know what you're thinking. Why waiting so long to start with part 2? Well, I wanted to give some time to see if there was some traction on viewerships. And as it turns out, I had no reason to worry, because you all seem to love these videos. And without that support and appreciation for getting these put together, I wouldn't continue the series. Now, with that being said, at the end of part 1, I listed tracks that were reused, because a lot of tracks are reused. However, that's enough of me talking. So why don't we go ahead and jump right back into Deltarune Chapter 2's original soundtrack, and let's get started on part 2 of rating every Deltarune Chapter 2 original soundtrack. Now's your chance to be plays when you're fighting with Spamton. Now, let me tell you something about this track, and there's really only one word I can think of to describe it. Iconic. This track is incredible. Actually, I would even argue it's in the top three, I said again, best soundtracks of Deltarune Chapter 2. And throughout the song, you'll hear something weird. A voice saying, "Now's your chance to be a big shot," which is one of Spamton's well-known lines. But again, the instrumentation, the weird voice being thrown in there with bits and pieces of the quote I just said, makes this one of the absolute best starts I could think of for starting part 2 of this video. Now, let's take a listen to this Mad Salesman's battle theme, shall we? Elegant Entrance plays after Queen kidnaps the Fun Gang and traps Chris and Susie in their own personal rooms. This also plays after you finally manage to escape your own personal room and get ready to go after and confront Queen. The track itself yells the word regal. It's really, truly elegant, which fits the title perfectly. However, we're not here to talk about the titles. We're here to talk more about what I do and don't like about these tracks. Elegant Entrance works well, and compared to Basement, which plays before Card Castle and on your way to fighting the Spade King, Elegant Entrance is significantly better. So let's take a quick listen and move on, shall we? Bluebird of Misfortune plays during Birdley's backstory. The cutscene itself explains how Birdley became the top of his class with the help of Noel when they were still young. The track itself is somber and quite sad, and it fits very well. After all, you're learning a very, I would almost say, very sad backstory for this character. You see the vulnerabilities of Birdley's personality and character, and you can feel it through this while listening to this song too. While it's not the best track, it definitely deserves a good rating because the mood itself fits perfectly. Pandora Palace plays whenever you're exploring Queen's Mansion. It's also the final of the 3 field themes in Deltarune Chapter 2. Now the track itself is really good, but listening back to it, it reminds me of one thing: Scooby-Doo. More specifically the chase scenes, you know, the ones where they're running along, they're going between the doors, and the characters bump into each other, you get scared. You know exactly what I'm talking about if you've seen Scooby-Doo. However, the chaotic nature of this song fits well. After all, Queen's Mansion is a cesspool of danger, even more so than Card Castle. However, that's what I love about this song compared to Card Castle. It's more uplifting, which sounds weird. However, it also fits the entire theme perfectly while you go around exploring Queen's Mansion. Overall, though, this is a fantastic final field theme for Deltarune Chapter 2. KEYGEN plays after you speak to Spamton in his shop, after buying the KEYGEN, well, key item. Now, the track itself has an obscure reference somewhere, and I won't get into that, but I do have one little thing to say before we move on to the next track. KEYGEN! Tunnel of Love plays whenever you take a swan boat down a river, while with only Chris and Rousey being the only available party members. This is because Birdley takes Susie with him to the roof to go rescue Noelle after she's also been captured by Queen. Now, the track itself is ironic and kind of hilarious because it's not an actual river, it's battery acid, which fits the technological theme so well it's humorous. And the fact that it's a homage to your typical tunnel of love, and the fact that even the instrumentations, you want to feel like you're in a tunnel of love, which isn't even a tunnel of love at all and is very dangerous, makes it a really good track because it's trying to be a funnier version of your standard tunnel of love. It's pronounced Rules plays whenever Chris Rouse fight Rules card, who has not only followed you to Cyberworld, but also wants to battle you and fight you so he can become Queen Second in Command. Now, what I really enjoy about this track isn't the fact that it not only uses Rules card's main theme as a leitmotif, it's the fact that it throws in pirate instrumentation in there. Now you may be saying, what do you mean pirate? Well, if you just listen to the track here in just a moment, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. However, It's Pronounced Rules is a great track, and it fits the battle perfectly, making it deserve a really high rating. Lost Girl plays when Susie is able to find Noelle in her room and talks to her about what's been going on this entire chapter. While it's associated with Noelle, it's also heavily associated with her missing sister, Des Holiday. The track itself is more than the word iconic. It is well known in the Deltarune community because of the mysteries behind it, and of course Des Holiday, which I will not be talking about because that's a whole can of worms right there. However, Lost Girl fits very well for Noelle. After all, she's discovering new things about herself, and her confidence is slowly building, which makes it a really good opportunity when listening to the song that you realize that, hey, Noelle is actually growing as a person, or, well, a reindeer, which is what she is. However, that's not the point. The point is that this is a really good track, and it deserves a good rating, only truly because it's iconic, and I do enjoy the instrumentation that this track uses. Ferris wheel plays when Noelle and Susie take a giant Ferris wheel to where Queen is. It's also a very important part of Susie's character development. As weird as that sounds, and it really is weird, it's a literal giant Ferris wheel. This thing is huge. The track itself is good, and it reminds you, well, shouldn't really say remind you, it makes you feel like you are in a Ferris wheel. And, again, as weird as it is, because you don't normally hear music while riding a Ferris wheel, it does fit the theme, and more specifically, what's going on very well. Overall, the theme is good, but it's certainly not the best. Attack of the Killer Queen plays whenever you're doing your final battle against Queen. And throughout the fight, Queen mentions that all the things that she's doing are necessary and that she's trying to do what she believes is right. This track is phenomenally good. And I don't mean that lightly. I love this track. This track is significantly better than Chaos Key. And throughout, something quite humorous is that this track utilizes a lot of Birdley's motifs, which makes sense because Birdley is being used to, or more specifically, is forced to attack the fun gang while you're doing this whole fight. Overall though, besides all that, Attack of the Killer Queen, by far at this point, is one of the absolute best final boss themes I have ever heard, and I think you'll really enjoy listening to this track too. Giga size plays whenever Queen makes you realize that she's not done fighting. And she uses this giant robot that you see bits and pieces of throughout Queen's mansion. And as a matter of fact, Queen gives the fun gang a run for their money. Because realistically, without their own giant robot, they do not stand a chance. This track is a more dangerous sounding track than Attack of the Killer Queen. That's because, realistically, you the player think, oh no, we've lost. The instrumentation sounds dire, and even has an ending with some regal sounding instruments, which has some irony in that. And makes you realize that despite all the shenanigans throughout Deltarune Chapter 2, especially with Queen, she still has this much power to be able to stop you. Overall though, Giga Size is a really great track. Powers Combined plays whenever the Fun Gang, Birdly, and any enemies you've spared in Deltarune Chapter 2 come together to create a giant robot. And it also includes the Thrash Machine you created in Deltarune Chapter 1. If there's one thing about this instrumentation in the track itself, it reminds me of Power Rangers. You know how they would say, "Go, go, Power Rangers," and then they go in and fuse into this giant, mech or whatever they do. This does remind you of that, and it fits perfectly for the scenario that's currently happening. Overall, Powers Combined is a really good precursor to the next track. Knock You Down plays during the actual final battle against Queen's giant robot. The track itself is incredible. I enjoy this track because it reminds you of your typical, Punch-Out games. You throw a few punches here and there, you dodge attacks, and that's what you're doing throughout this entire fight. And I simply enjoy this track for what it is. While it isn't the most spectacular track out there, especially in the entirety of Deltarune, it is perfectly fitting for this battle against, two robots duking it out. So, let's take a quick listen and move on to something a little darker. A Dark Truth plays when Rousey explains what happens when the balance of light and dark shatters. More specifically, talking about an event that could occur called the Roaring, where the darkness would somehow overpower the light so badly that the Darkeners, or the enemies, as you may refer to as, just turn into stone. This track is disturbing and sad, and it makes you really feel like if Birdly were to have tried to open another fountain in the current dark world that they're in, that being Cyber World, this catastrophic event could happen. The track itself is incredible, and once again goes to show you that even though there's lighthearted moments, there are some serious consequences if these lighteners, being Chris, Susie, Noel, and Birdley, do the wrong things. Digital Roots plays whenever Chris alone explores Queen's mansion to find an empty disc for Spamton, who desperately wants it. Now, the track itself lacks a lot of instrumentation. However, that's not a problem in this case, because what is used is dark and disturbing, almost gives you goosebumps listening to it. Because of how desolate everything is down there in Queen's basement. It's where all the corrupted data is. It's dark, it's disturbing, and it fits well. While not being the absolute best, it's certainly better than the track Basement from Deltarune Chapter 1. Deal Gone Wrong plays whenever Chris realizes that the deal you've made with Spamton is not a good deal at all. As a matter of fact, it makes things so much worse. This also plays before the secret boss fight of Deltarune Chapter 2. Deal Gone Wrong is such a good track. I have nothing bad to say about it. And throughout this scene and listening to this track, you may also realize that your deal with Spamton isn't exactly ideal, and that the deal has gone completely wrong, because it's not what you expect it to be, and you feel like your life is in actual danger, which in the case of Chris almost happens, but right before that is rescued by Susie and Rousey. And this is right before the next track plays. And let's just take a quick listen to the consequences of this deal that went so wrong. Big Shot plays when you're fighting against the secret boss of Deltarune Chapter 2, Spamton Neo. And throughout the fight, you learn more about Spamton's psyche, and exactly the thing that he wants most is freedom. I love Big Shot. Big Shot is by far and away, I don't care what you say, or complain, or argue with me about it, is the absolute best track of Deltarune Chapter 2. It uses all of Spamton's leitmotifs perfectly. I love Big Shot. And it's also part of the chain because earlier we listened to a track called Now's Your Chance to Be A, and now we have Big Shot. Need I say more? No, I'm not going to say any more. You need to sit here and listen to this track just so that you understand how amazing it is. A real boy plays at the end of the Spamton Neo secret boss fight, as long as you've spared him. The track itself, well, speaks for itself really. Spamton believes he's going to be a real boy now because you've cut his strings that are attached on his body. And as you also know, that's a reference to Pinocchio. And overall, the track is short and very, very cheerful and happy, which is a stark contrast to Big Shot. However, the track is still really good. So let's take a quick listen to move on. Dialtone plays after the Spamton Neo fight, whether you spared or fought him. It is also the second of the two unique shop themes in Deltarune Chapter 2. The track only features two, well, I should rather say, one instrument and a soundbite. That being what sounds like a broken piano playing a few notes, silence, does it again, and then toward the middle of the song you start hearing a phone ringing. And while an actual dial tone isn't used, it's referenced a lot in dialogue. Overall, dial tone is very creepy, and that's mostly because of the awkward and silent gaps that are in between them, but it just sounds so barren, empty, and it feels completely out of place, which is perfect for Spamton. Sans plays when you enter the convenience store in Hometown, and it's run by a character named, well, Sans, who is a skeleton that always tells horrible puns, and it also is the exact same thing that's heard in Undertale for the exact same character. Now I'll go ahead and say this. I could go on a tangent about how Sans appears in both games and how he doesn't seem different from his version or variation in Undertale, but I'm not going to get into that. The track itself is well known and very iconic in the Undertale/Deltarune community. The track itself is fine. I enjoy Sans' theme, and I think you might enjoy it too. So let's just take a quick listen and move on to the next. Chill Jailbreak Alarm to Study and Relax 2 plays when you enter the police station and all of the criminals locked up escape after Officer Undyne slams her hands on the desk, causing a key to fly and unlock the cage where the criminals are. And after Undyne goes after them, Officer Napstabluke, a ghost, plays this on the boombox. Now, I presume it's a boombox. It could be a CD player. I'm entirely unsure. The track itself is just reminds you of the, YouTube videos about music to study and relax to. It's okay, and the only reason I say it's okay and it's not bad or mediocre is because it utilizes Napstabluke's leitmotifs from Undertale. Overall, the track itself is okay. Now, how about we move on to the absolute final soundtrack that will be talked about for Deltarune Chapter 2, which is significantly better than this. Until Next Time plays during the end credits of Deltarune Chapter 2. This is the final soundtrack of Deltarune Chapter 2, excluding any repeat tracks from Deltarune Chapter 1. What I love about this track specifically is the leitmotif of using Don't Forget. Throughout the song, you hear bits and pieces of Don't Forget, and while the track itself isn't perfect, it's almost there for being a contender, for being a perfect track. However, you hear it a couple more times, I should say one more time in Deltarune Chapter 3, which means it's not unique to just a chapter, which would have made this a lot better. Overall, though, Until Next Time serves as a great way to end the Deltarune Chapter 2 original soundtrack. Now that we finished this specific final track, I'm going to give you my closing thoughts and credits. So let's just listen to this and move right on into the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. And just like last time, I would like for you to possibly like, subscribe, and comment on this video about what you did and didn't like. I think this video was a lot easier to record, and part 1 was a lot easier to record as well because I simplified my explanations on the story and talked about more specifically about what I do and don't like about these soundtracks. Now, as for Deltarune Chapter 3, that'll come quite soon. But for now, I would like to just one more time thank you all for watching, and remember, I don't own any credit to Deltarune. Deltarune credit goes to Toby Fox and the Deltarune Team. Otherwise, that's all I have to say. So with that, this is Dakota78 signing off.